Pranakasha live stream. Hey folks, it's Matt from Pranakasha Productions, and today we're talking with Darin Foster of the Forward Party. Hey Darin, what's
Hi,
up?
nice to be here.
So we were just talking. Of course, now politics season is about to start kicking in. So, of course, I'm already okay, guys. First off, I am a staunch supporter of Forward Party already. The day I saw their thing on Twitter, I think it was, where it said "not left, not right, forward," I was like, "Whoa, that's the best slogan ever. I'm going to join these guys." So after that, the rest is history. So you used to be president of the Washington chapter of the Forward Party, right?
I was co-chair, yes.
Co-chair, co-president.
Yep.
Okay.
I was co-chair from about August 2022 to May 2023.
Very good. Okay. So call it 9 months. Seem about right. All right. So, and you guys are going to save America, right? Because we're everybody's fed up with this constant polarization of the Democrats and the Republicans hurling arrows at each other and never getting anything done besides just keeping people riled up.
Oh, you're 100% right. I have an analogy I like to use when I'm talking about the problem, but there's two of them. The first is it's a game of football,
Right.
and the entire legislative process has become offense and defense. And if you're not trying to score, you're trying to stop the opposing team from scoring.
Right.
And I don't have a good analogy for the people in this case, except you're the ball getting kicked back and forth.
Oh, we're the ball. Okay. I thought
We're
we
the
would be
ball
this.
getting kicked back and forth and just watching as nothing is actually done when you have all these problems that aren't being addressed.
Right. And who?
The other one I like to use is the way
Hold on.
politics in general has
Wait a
kind
minute.
of
Hold on.
transformed. Is it's a game of tug of war.
Tug of war. Let's go back to
And
the football analogy for a sec. So, in the football analogy, who are the lobbyists?
not sure. I will openly say lobbyists aren't my biggest problem in politics at the moment.
Oh, really?
Well, it's not my personal one, so I don't normally integrate it into my analogies.
Oh,
Uh, I mean, I don't have a problem with lobbyists per se. I have a problem with big money in lobby.
okay.
Because I mean, if you go down to your congressman, you give him a call and you give him your opinion on a bill coming up as a citizen, that's lobbying.
Oh, okay. I'm talking about the
If you're
donors.
talking about like professional paid lobbyists who are paid
Yeah.
millions of dollars and then donate millions of dollars to convince Congress people to give them the time of day and to convince them to take positions,
Right.
that's different, obviously.
Okay, then let's just call it, instead of getting confused with terms, let's just call it legal bribery. So who are the people committing legal bribery? Who are they?
I think they're the referees in this analogy
Oh, okay.
because they're the ones who set a lot of the rules that we're following.
Right. Because you've probably heard this too. I mean, it seems like we're a democracy, but really, if you go and look, whenever some congressperson votes on an issue, it's always whoever gave them the most money is the one that sways them.
Yeah. Well, for one, we're not technically a democracy. We're a democratic republic.
Right.
Which, I mean, honestly, a flat democracy has its own problems.
Right.
Versus, at least from a theoretical standpoint.
I agree.
And it's always hard when you talk about lobbyists because essentially lobbyists are super experts in fields, but then they are heavily biased in their opinions.
Right.
And them giving money to people that happen to agree with them, it's hard because it's not like you can just directly identify it. Like, for example, ranked choice voting, a huge topic for for forward in general. If we went out, we tried to convince that all of the congressmen in the country. Let's say we sat down with every congressman in the country and tried to convince them ranked choice voting needs to happen. And then we convince 10 of them. And 10 of them say, yeah, you're right. We'll get behind this. And then we say, great, here's $100,000 each to your campaigns because you are going to support what we care about. That's lobbying.
So then that means you're a lobbyist.
That means we're a lobbyist, yeah.
Right. Okay.
And so lobbying isn't inherently evil, but at the same time, the problem is that it's not forward that's flush with cash to give to politicians to influence politics. It's oil companies, it's major pharmaceuticals, it's a number of organizations that have profits in mind and people somewhere further down their list.
Right, because it boils down to whoever's got the most money gets their way.
Yeah. Well, sometimes. I mean, there's still something to be said about convincing voters.
Okay.
But that depends. But money still talks. And
the
reality is that we have mountains of evidence that say if you can outspend your opponent, you have very good odds of dramatically increasing your support.
Okay, so now you mentioned rank whatever voting. Could you explain to us exactly what that is?
Absolutely. Ranked choice voting, RCV. Okay. It's the latest trend in voting. And it's a methodology of removing or making spoiling in an election a thing of the past, as well as giving people a better way of expressing who they really want to represent them. The entire idea that is right now we have what's called first past the post voting. That means that you either get your final two and whoever gets the most votes wins, or the first person to break 50%.
Okay.
Depending on your jurisdiction, most people use that form of voting.
So that's how it currently
what ranked choice voting does is it allows you to rank a certain number of people, ideally 5. And you have your 5 top people from your primaries. And then those 5 people you get to rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
And so now let's say in this hypothetical situation, nobody breaks 50%. If somebody breaks 50%, great. That means that they took out all their opponents. They got the majority. That's game over.
Okay.
But if nobody breaks 50% in that, then you take whoever voted first. So whoever, and this is talking about your number 1 votes. So let's say hypothetically it went 40, 30, 20. Let's see here. That's 490, 7 and 3.
Okay.
So whoever voted, the 3% that voted first for the last place person, that person gets removed from the election, and that 3% of voters go to their second person. And so that 3% gets distributed to the other 4 candidates.
Oh, I see.
And you continue to shave off the bottom and move people to their next preferred person until somebody breaks 50%.
Now, that means you have to vote a whole bunch of times, or you just do an algorithm that goes until it gets a winner?
A computer can do it in a heartbeat. It takes a computer a few minutes longer than it does to first past the post, because first past the post is literally just a tally, X versus Y. Whereas in this case, the computer has to say, if the 50% threshold wasn't hit, then you have to redistribute. It's much harder to do by hand, but very easy by computer.
Okay, so
there's actually a website you can test it on. It's called Rank the Vote. Feel free, anybody listening, to Google it. It's a free organization website just promoting ranked choice voting. You can put in anything you want in it and play around with how it actually works.
Okay, and then how does it get rid of spoilers then?
Well, one of the primary reasons people say they don't want to vote for a third party is because they're afraid of voting for someone who doesn't actually have a chance of winning.
Okay.
So there are, I don't know, there's not a good statistic on this. Let's say there's 10% of people that really never want to vote for a Democrat or Republican.
Mm-hmm.
However, many of those people feel that they have to vote Democrat or Republican for their vote to count.
Okay.
Because if you voted for, let's say, the Green Party, we all know the Green Party is not going to win the presidency.
Right.
And what if your vote for that meant that a good hypothetical in this case is Trump, who would be very anti-Green Party.
Okay.
let's say that because you didn't vote for Democrats, the Democrats were one vote shy and Trump became president.
Okay.
And your vote could have gone to a Democrat and a Democrat could have won. And it creates this situation where instead of voting for who we really want to represent us, we're voting for the lesser of the two evils of the two main parties.
Okay,
And so that's what we call the spoiler effect.
Okay, so in the other way with the rank, you would just vote for your Green Party number 1 and then your alternate for number 2, right?
Correct.
Okay.
And you would get to put whoever you wanted last on the bottom.
Okay.
And this actually has another huge benefit in that it makes elections friendlier.
Oh.
And this is actually a really interesting thing.
A kinder, gentler election.
Yes. Well, at least kinder. I don't know about gentler. But at least they're usually nicer about it, because the reality is, even if you're not people's first choice, you want to be people's second choice or their third choice. You don't want to be last, because that means that if you don't break 50%, you want that redistribution in your favor. That means that what we call opposition politics, that means where you only run basically on hating on everybody else, becomes very negative, because while you might convince 30 to 40% of the population to vote for you, everybody else is going to rank you the bottom. Which means that when those redistributions happen, you are only going to get further away from winning rather than getting closer. And so
I see.
You don't just want first place, you also want second place. That means you have to at least attempt to appeal to the people who disagree with you and won't rank you first, which causes more people to be willing to reach across the aisle for their elections.
Oh, that's good.
It's very good, and it's very much what Forward wants to achieve. That's one of the biggest problems we have. So you can look at the stats and watch as over the last 50 years, the number of bills that have been passed with bipartisan support, like just plummets in a linear line to now, which is almost zero. Sorry, I know I just threw a lot at you.
Yeah. So, is there any districts out there that are using this new method now?
Ranked choice voting?
Yeah.
The entire state of Alaska.
Oh, cool.
Yep. As a matter of fact, Jason Grenn, sorry.
Okay.
The legislator that actually sponsored that bill, won as an independent in Alaska, is now a member of the Washington Forward Party.
Oh, great. But
he's
Alaska
actually probably going to be speaking at our convention coming up.
Alaska's technically a red state, right?
Yes, they are technically a red state, but they have the same blue-red divide as everybody else. Maybe a little less dramatic just because of the lower population. So Anchorage area is still decently blue, but Alaska actually has a stronger independent streak just because they're so far away from national politics that they're a lot more independent, I guess. So if an independent's going to win, I would bet it happens in Alaska, but it's still surprising.
So it means that this ranked choice voting is popular with the Republicans as well as the Democrats, right?
I don't think it's popular with either. Remember when I was talking about that spoiler effect?
So they like the spoiler effect?
Yes, because it keeps people from voting for third parties and more votes go to Democrats and Republicans. Ranked choice voting makes people feel more comfortable voting for third parties. Third parties are a threat to the two major parties.
Okay, so now we get in deeper. So one person might say then, well, the reason why we don't have more than two parties is because the deep state always wants to have the two parties battling each other for eternity so that they can maintain power.
I mean, you're not wrong.
So how do we convince the deep state to change their paradigm then?
Well, it depends what you mean by the deep state. If you're talking about the federal government, it's less the federal government's thing and more just the parties themselves. I mean, over the last 100 years, Republican and Democratic parties have been slowly building up the walls around their centers of power in the states. A great example, and actually I can give you a very real example that we're dealing with right now on a national level for Forward. The state of Texas has a legal mandate in order to create a new party, and you cannot run for office in Texas unless you are a member of a political party. And so you have to be, right now, you basically have to run as a major party in Texas in order to even be on the ballot.
Okay.
We don't have those problems here, thankfully, in Washington. But
Okay.
in Texas, in order to create a new party, there is a 9-week period from start to finish where you have to get 70, it's like 70, I can't remember if it's 71 or 76,000 signatures of people saying that they will be a member of the Forward Party in 9 weeks.
Okay.
That is not a small achievement by any means whatsoever. And so they have put a very high bar on making a party. And then when Forward appeared and actually started building momentum and preparing for their signature drives, Texas legislature, which is a supermajority Republicans, which means they can pass anything,
Right.
started drafting a bill to raise that number to almost 200,000. Simply because a single third party was actually putting together enough momentum to get those signatures. And to be clear, the difference between 70-something thousand and 200,000 signatures is a
triple.
very big,
Yeah, that's
big
tripled it.
gap.
Yeah.
And so, but that we can find examples of that literally across the country as parties look and they realize if we do that, we will lose some of our influence in this state.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, either you try to fly under the radar and just sort of secretly create yourself, or else you're going to, if you start gaining some momentum and gathering attention, then immediately the other two parties are going to attack you. So, how, I mean, so what do you base your momentum on, or our hope this time? Is it just that everyone's so disgusted with the state of politics that we're ready to try a third party once again?
Actually, yeah, that's a big part of it. And it's actually a much larger population than you would think. About 60% of Americans feel that neither major party represents them.
Okay.
And these are like major national statistics. And I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
That means that only 40% of America feel represented by your two options.
Yeah.
That's actually really not good for any democracy in general.
So,
and
okay.
That's not to say that a certain percentage of that 60% are okay with voting one way or another, which I'm sure many do. I mean, we know how many people vote, and a huge majority of votes go to Democrats or Republicans. But it's often, but now we're seeing it get, it's getting worse.
Well, here's my deal.
Like most people feel that the parties are getting more and more drawn apart, further and further away from each other and from actually solving anything.
Right.
It's becoming a game where people don't actually want to solve problems. They just want to bicker.
Exactly.
And they want to be everybody wants to be the underdog at all times.
Yeah. They
are a threat. And we need to stop them kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So, like when I started saying, you know what, I'm going to go all in with the Forward Party, I was like, there's no way we're going to elect a Forward Party president. That won't happen. However, the thing is, what I realized is all we have to do is elect one or two Forward Party senators, and they could have all the power because they would be the swing vote in any type of situation. So that's what I think that has
actually been talked about a lot as a long-term goal, because the reality is the Senate rarely swings more than 2 senators for power. It's very rare that there's actually more than 53 now Democratic or Republican senators on the floor.
Yeah, so if we had, say, 5 Forward Party senators, that would change things big time.
Like this year, it would be 1.
Yeah.
And it's actually, and this is actually kind of a hilarious notion, but we can see I have actual examples of what this kind of impact could look like.
Yeah.
For one, if you think of it as 2 teams, one senator creates a whole third team.
Exactly. Well, we've seen it happen.
And so suddenly everybody has to negotiate with everybody.
Right. We've seen it happen. We've seen rogue senators suddenly say, you know what, I'm not voting for my party. And then suddenly they have all the power.
It is a whole example in Manchin
Yeah.
with the climate bill a few years ago, and he basically single-handedly significantly lowered the size of the climate bill that Biden and the Democrats were trying to pass.
Well, then there was Sinema. She did it too a while ago, right?
You'd have to remind me on which topic it
I
was.
can't remember what it was, but I remember her being.
I know that what is it? The squad have pulled things a few different times,
Yeah.
but I can't remember which one off the top of my head. But
I have to
Manchin
remember too.
and the single senator dramatically changing budgeting and policing is a prime example of what a single forward person in office
So
could
here's the
actually do.
question. How much does it take? How much money, how many millions of dollars does it take to fund one senator's campaign?
A lot.
Like how many?
Oh God. Well, if an area was so it's not just getting a single senator elected, because you're talking like the greatest uphill battle of all time. So
No,
first
but
of all,
I'm trying to figure out how
incumbents,
much funding it would take.
right? So
Like
not,
say it costs $5
I'm
million
going to give you the
to
logic
fund one
for my number
senator.
first.
Suppose it took
Because
$5 million, right?
no, way more.
Okay.
I mean, I am not an expert on national campaign politics, and it would wildly depend on the actual location, because higher population areas have much more expensive campaigns.
Right.
But I would estimate between 20 and 40 million dollars it would take to actually
call it 40.
turn a blue or red Senate seat.
Okay, so you said $200 million
purple.
would get us 5 senators then.
Maybe, if you were really lucky. But what happens in that case, I've mentioned how Republicans and Democrats, the only thing worse than fighting each other would be fighting a third party. And so as soon as the forward party becomes a threat, suddenly
They go after you.
There
Yeah.
will be blue and red dollars coming after forward endlessly. They already do in some places. But
So here's the thing. So all it would take, to tell you the truth, to get forward party off the ground and really doing it is get Elon Musk to fund it.
I don't know. I'm convinced he's a Republican.
No, I'm not. So
I don't know.
He's more. I mean, he's leaning more.
I wouldn't want to make that call. Someone much more patient than me should make that call.
Yeah, but I mean, again, and the thing is, notice the only reason he's staying out of politics is out of his own choice, because he could easily, if all it takes is $200 million, he could write that check today.
Yeah, I don't know, because who was it back in 2016 or 2012 that proved that just throwing a huge wad of cash at the campaign doesn't actually win it? It was oh, I just forgot who he was. The news magnate, I thought. I forgot his name. Anyways, we know that it's not just having a wad of cash that does it, but using it right.
Well,
and
that's for winning the election, but I'm talking about once the senator's in there, winning their loyalty and all that, then having them do your bidding. All that. You know, once they're, okay, these guys are basically funding me, so I have to do what they want, type of the thing.
I don't know. That might be a little too blatant of a bribe to be ignored by even the deepest of states.
Well, that's what goes on right now all the time.
Yeah, but they have to at least be careful about it right now.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like, that's why everybody stays locked up with whatever parties, because the party's funding them.
That's actually that's actually a huge part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they also know that if they break ranks, then the party will suddenly start slinging mud at you and change you from being their best person to being the Antichrist.
I hate that term, breaking ranks.
Yeah.
It's like, we at National have decided that you will do these things.
I know, that's what completely sucks.
And what
you have to, here's who you have to vote for. These are the issues you have to vote for. If you don't, you're out, and we're going to now consider you our enemy.
I actually have a grandfather that told one of the greatest quotes he ever gave me. He said, "You don't vote for the party, you vote for the person."
Mm-hmm.
Now, I shouldn't quote him on that, because I'm pretty sure he hasn't voted for a Democrat in 30 years. But
Yeah.
the actual idea behind that, I think, is extremely valid because there are really good Congress people and senators out there that whose hands we've tied by their election monies.
Mm-hmm.
Like these people really, you don't get to Congress or Senate without caring. This is
Mm-hmm.
actually like something I learned a long time ago. Is that the people that get to those higher office, they really do care about what they're doing and what they're talking about.
Right.
There are far better ways for them to get rich or powerful in the
Right.
world without running for office,
Right.
especially if they can afford and have the friends to do that.
Yeah.
But once they get there, in order to keep their position and actually do anything, they end up having to toe the line.
Yeah.
And Forward now is stepping up and saying, you know what? We don't want to just draw a line. We want candidates to actually come forward with their good ideas. And then
Right.
we'll throw those ideas against each other. And then that's who we're going to support, who can get through a forward primary, basically. But
Yeah.
instead of coming forward and talking about who can be pro or anti-abortion harder, we're going to talk about all the different ways in which we can solve problems in America.
Yeah. The other, I mean, so for not left, not right, forward. In other words, center. Or I would say just common sense.
Yeah, they're actually partnered with the Common Sense Party in California now.
Yeah.
It's pretty
So
cool.
I assume at some point there's several third parties that are all sort of growing themselves. Then at some point they're all going to need to consolidate into one. Otherwise, they won't really have enough influence, right?
I don't know.
Or at least if they not, if they can have different branding, but maybe
I would say that a lot of the democracy reforms that Forward is promoting, ranked choice voting, anti-gerrymandering, things, or sometimes you hear about democracy dollars, things like that.
Mhm.
A lot of those would significantly improve the position of third parties.
Mhm.
But I wouldn't say that they would just join up with Forward.
Mhm.
And to be honest, I don't see that the Libertarian Party, they have a very clear ideals.
Mhm.
And I would say that now, especially more recently, their ideals don't really line up that well with a lot of what Forward believes, other than some very narrow pieces of it.
Yeah,
The Green
well, I mean,
Party,
they're hooked up with the
yeah.
more extreme version of the Republican Party now.
Yep. And
Right.
they didn't used to be. That's actually really, it's one of the really sad things of politics lately, and the whole radicalization. The Libertarian Party used to actually be pretty cool. Like, while there in every party there's crazies,
Right.
but in the I like the Libertarian Party. The idea of limited government, only doing what you have to by government, that is something like most people can get behind.
Right.
But then
As long
they
as you don't take it to the
went like
extreme.
super anti-immigration and anti-everybody and just not quite anarchist, but awfully close.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well that was nice while it lasted. But and the Green Party, oh God, I don't even think they have more than 24 elected officials in the entire country.
Yeah.
And that
Okay.
they keep running presidents, but they're not. That's actually something we could talk about too.
Yeah, let's
because,
talk about it.
Forward
So
is not running a president
here,
in
where do you think
2024.
Robert F. Kennedy would fit in? Would he potentially be a forward party candidate?
That's the great grandson or whatever that's been in the news a lot lately, right?
Junior, yeah. Yeah, the
Junior,
Democratic
yeah.
Party is doing the best they can to demonize him
Yeah.
because he's a spoiler. What do you know?
Well, I haven't read too much good about him, to
Well,
be fair.
that's because
But that
what you
might
got to
be
do
because-
is get to some alternate media sources. Like if you go watch Lex Friedman's podcast, they talk for like 2.5 hours. Then you get to find out what he's really like.
Lex Friedman. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. As I said, so Forward is really trying not to set a litmus test,
Okay.
so to speak. They have fully left any platform stuff outside of the principles, and that's
Okay.
fair. The thriving communities and free people, et cetera, et cetera. Then you can make some some policy positions out of that, but very few. But the reality is we're going to have some policy positions in order to better articulate what that actually means.
And I've heard some people get frustrated with Forward Party for that exact reason. They're like, well, what do you guys stand for? And we're like, well, we don't stand for anything. Well, then what are you?
Well, that's not true, but we don't have a good way of explaining it.
Okay.
And the
it's got to be simple.
It can't be.
It can't make people's eyes glaze over. It's got to be quick. Just bam, bam, bam. Yeah. Oh, and hit you in the heart. So people are like, yeah, I can vote for that. I'm a Forward Party person now. Like the slogan. Yep. The slogan rocks.
Yes. Yeah. And it's also challenging because one of the ideals of Forward is to be less litmus test. So
I don't even understand what that means.
So a litmus test, like, it's basically it's a chemical test where it's like what you dip in a pool to check if it has chlorine. And you pull it back and it has a color. And if it's color A, that means not enough chlorine. And if it's color B, it means there's chlorine.
Okay.
And it means it's binary. Okay. Yes or no.
No, we can't have binary. Binary is evil now.
Well, no, but it's the same way for Republicans. Like, let's say I wanted to go and I'd wanted to run for office as a Republican.
Right.
Okay. And I sit down with their candidate review team or whoever they have, and they ask me my position on abortion. I'm pro-choice. Okay. They ask me my position on the free market, regulate everything. Mm-hmm. Right. I give every wrong answer. Mm-hmm. Right. And they're going to say, no, you're not a Republican.
Right.
Because obviously I'm not a Republican. That's the litmus tests where they look down your positions and they say, yes, you are a Republican, or no, you aren't a Republican based on your policy positions.
Okay.
And Forward doesn't want to do that. And for good reasons, because we just talked about how we're losing good ideas in the mix because they have to stick to their litmus tests.
Right.
They have to test positive for chlorine.
Right. Yeah.
And so, but if Forward manages to stay open to more ideas, then the idea is that if more people come to the table with different ideas, better solutions to our problems are going to come out of that.
Right. So I would say, instead of even saying it like that, I would say Forward stands for common sense.
I don't know. I'd say Forward stands for uncommon sense, because let's face it, it's not common.
No, but the thing is, common sense is a simple term that everybody can relate to and want to have.
That's true. I don't know. See,
in other words, enough of the partying.
I have a weird feeling with common sense, just because I remember back when I was in community college, in the same week, two different professors said different things about common sense. One called it uncommon sense because nobody has it anymore. Mm-hmm. And then the other called it common nonsense because all the things that people think are common sense are actually just nonsense.
Yeah.
And so I got the whole dichotomy all clashed together in a very short amount of time.
Yeah. The trick, though, I mean, the thing, you don't want to get too intellectual about it because then you lose people. You want to keep it simple and hit people. That is the genius of Trump. Even though I can't stand him, is that he knew how to hit people in the gut and get an emotional response from them. And he knew that that's the most powerful thing for a whole bunch of people. And that's all it takes to get them to vote for you.
Yep.
So he knew he's an expert at that.
So
the thing is, when you're in politics, and group psychology really comes into play, because so it's all about how, if you can get into people's subconscious or into their instinctual way of thinking, that's the thing that sways people or votes the most statistically. So that's where you have to appeal to your voters.
Yep.
If you want to win.
No, I 100% agree. I've read entire books on the idea of value-based arguments. It's hard to explain in a short amount of time, but basically, many of us have very intrinsic values, and in order to convince somebody of something, you need to appeal to those intrinsic values, not the ones that you care about.
Right.
Like, exactly. I can actually give an example with UBI. Universal Basic Income. Most Yang fans Yang being a co-founder of Forward, definitely brings some popularity there. So most people, he brought it to the forefront of the conversation.
Okay.
UBI if you frame like for a more a charitably minded person, you might say that this will alleviate so many societal problems. It'll help with homelessness. It'll help with child hunger.
Mm-hmm.
It'll lower crime rates because less people will be desperate, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Those
This is all
those are good
theoretical. I mean,
things.
we'd have to
Yeah, this is
actually
all
try it
theoretical, of
out and
course.
see how it actually works. My
We have
theory is
some minor
actually,
studies that have shown great benefit from it, but
yeah,
that's
I think
besides
to
the
tell you the
point there.
truth, I think what you'd have to do is apply your universal basic income, and I'm pretty sure there's a sweet spot. Like if you give
Well,
everybody their entire income like that, I think they'll just become lazy. But there's a
well,
certain
yeah, no,
percentage of their income that if you give them, maybe it's like 17% or 32%. Or, there's some sweet spot in there where it
oh,
does the most good.
I'm not even a wholesale supporter. I think that UBI has limited uses at the moment, but
Okay.
I think there's, but anyways, I was going to say on the values bit there, but if I was trying to convince somebody who was very empathetic to the needs of the needy,
Mm-hmm.
those would be very convincing arguments. However, for
Mm-hmm.
someone who really, really, really hates taxes and wealth distribution,
Mm-hmm.
which is a large subset of the United States, I would instead talk about how if we were to create this program, we could remove these other welfare programs, get people the same amount of money, and decrease the amount of money it would cost the United States dramatically because UBI is much, much simpler to
Manage.
administer than food stamps or rental
Okay.
assistance. It costs way less money, so we could have the same impact but for less money.
More bang
And
for your
so,
buck.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so while it's still a form of redistribution,
Mm-hmm.
it if we have the study to show like it does the same good but for less money, that convinces people with different values.
Okay.
I mean, most people like more for less money, but that's that's besides the point.
Okay. So I'm going to go a different direction. So I believe the way the Forward Party works right now is we aren't going to, or we're not capable of saying this person is a Forward Party candidate, but rather what the Forward Party is doing is saying the Forward Party endorses this particular Republican and this particular Democrat because these people represent the values that we represent. So we encourage you to vote for them. Is that how it works?
Depends on the state.
Oh, okay.
That's actually kind of a fun one to talk about because I get to learn a little bit about how Washington politics is different than the rest of the world.
Okay,
I
Washington
mentioned
State.
how in I mentioned how in Texas you can't actually run as forward.
Okay.
You just legally can't. You can't put your name as forward on the ballot. You literally have to be a member of a party that already exists, and they've raised up the gate after themselves or raised up
Right.
the drawbridge after themselves.
So at
So
that
in
point, we would
states
just be
like
supporting
that,
and funding who we thought represented us the best in
right.
Texas.
So in states like that, there's a general strategy to get turncoats, so to speak, get people willing to, but they can't actually turn all the way because then they can't run for office their next election. So
Oh,
they're
if you leave your party, you
become
can't run the next election?
right because you have to run as your party in
You can't
Texas.
switch?
No, well, I guess you could switch from Republican to Democrat,
Okay.
and you could quit in Texas. But but yeah, in many states they literally can't run as forward. So they have this kind of middle ground of forward affiliates,
Okay.
and they're basically people that fully embrace the ideals of forward, but they're running as another party, which is fine. Like the entire idea of forward is to have a diverse spread of belief system. So it's entirely possible that people are going to
Mm.
be able to qualify as both forward and Democrats. But I can tell you that in Washington, that's not really our plan
Okay.
because in Washington, anybody can run, and you wouldn't even have to tell forward that you were running as forward, and you could
Right.
say prefers forward party, except for president. That's the only
But
exception in
I
Washington.
heard it takes something like $200,000 or something to be able to be on the ballot, though. Not
$2,000.
true? Two
2,000.
2,000. Well, that's
Well,
doable,
it
but I
actually
heard
depends on your
200.
office. So there is a calculation based on population
Okay.
of your district, and
Okay.
for state legislature, most districts are about 220,000, give or take. And so it's a percentage of that. I think it's 1%. You have to pay that in dollars, and then you get to be on the ballot or on the primary ballot at least.
Okay, well, that's state legislator, but what about if you wanted to be a U.S. senator or U.S. representative?
I don't think any of the filing fees go that high. I can't remember the
Yeah.
exact number. I'd have to
Well,
look.
that's what I heard. I heard that it took a
for
lot of
federal
money.
positions, there's different rules on it.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that Washington Forward isn't focused on federal right now because that's a very expensive proposition and a high risk, high fail rate.
Yeah.
And the reality is that there's something like 500,000 elected positions in the country, and only about 1,000 of them are Congress, Senate, and
Right.
president. Not like 600 of them are big.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a bit. I believe Forward also is trying to take aim at the phenomenon that we have a whole bunch of political positions in the country that just go unopposed. It's like, for example, the King County executive, Dow Constantine, has been the King County executive for like 12 years, I believe. Because
Ever
nobody
contested?
runs. It's been a long time. Nobody runs against him.
Well,
So now he basically
Yeah.
figured out he could do anything he wants because there's nobody holding him accountable.
so that actually gets to the heart of party politics.
Okay.
Because let's face it, King County executor, Republicans are never going to win that.
Exactly.
Never. Like,
Right.
not in a million years. Well, maybe in a million years. I don't know. I guess Seattle might not exist then. Not in the next 100 years is a Republican going to win in King County.
Right.
Like, no, not in their right minds, at least. And so it's entirely possible that there are politics going on behind the scenes with Democratic primaries, or not primaries, I should
Mhm.
say. And behind the scenes, he might get challenged. But the reality is incumbents have a huge success rate.
Yeah.
And so if he wanted to win, and unless he willingly backed down, a Democrat competitor probably wouldn't knock him off. Incumbents have a huge statistical advantage in elections.
Right.
And so unless he was losing support from the Democrat Party, odds are very good they wouldn't bother challenging him. And why would they? They already have someone there. The party's perfectly happy.
And that's
Especially
the problem.
if he toes the line.
The problem is then you get these big power structures that become corrupt.
Yep.
And they do whatever they want because they know that they're put in place. And so it's not good.
No, you're absolutely right.
I happen to work for King County, and I have to
fun.
firsthand. In fact, I've even fixed the computers of Dow Constantine's staff. Most of them have gone, by the way. They've all left. They all
great.
left. It's like a bunch of rats that leave a sinking ship. So I know that there's.
So you're saying that Forward needs to run somebody for
that would be
King County
wonderful.
executor?
Yeah.
I'll talk to our guy that looks at that. Unfortunately, I'm on
Yeah.
the east side of the state, so while you guys are dealing with fighting Democrats over there, I get to fight Republicans. So I've got a very different fight over here.
Yeah. So
And that's actually a fun thing about being Forward too, is that you can't just pick the anti-stance.
yeah.
You can't actually. There's just no way to do it, because the reality is we are going to appeal to people who feel that Democrats have gone too far, and we appeal to Republicans that have gone too far.
Yeah.
And so it's actually really fascinating, because I get to volunteer with ex-Democrats, ex-Republicans, ex-Libertarians, all who either feel their parties are too corrupt or that their parties have gotten too crazy on their policies and are just out of touch with people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the ones, especially the ones that just come forward and say, the party hasn't done anything for people in a long time.
Yep.
Like, just in general, they just don't seem to care about the actual problems. They've gotten so caught in an ideological war that they, in Seattle, I know a big one is homelessness. And
Yeah. And
everybody's like, we have to be nice to them. We have to be nice to them. We have to be nice to them. Okay, but yeah, we have a problem here and it's not going away.
Yeah, so let me talk about that for a sec. So Seattle has cycled through several mayors all of them have failed to solve the homeless problem. But you know, the one constant is Dow Constantine has been there the whole time, and King County has a huge hand in this whole thing too.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing that's really stupid about it is they haven't solved homelessness. The other thing they do is they encourage drug use. They literally pass out needles so people can shoot up on the sidewalk. And then they wonder why there's so many drug users on the sidewalk and all these homeless people everywhere.
Yep.
You know, and I mean, it was kind of a nice idea. I mean, from one point of view, it's you're trying to help the drug users, but that the thing is it turned out, what do you know? It encourages it and makes everything worse.
Yep.
So
yeah, no, that's not an easy problem to solve in any way. I do not envy any politician tackling that problem, because there are so many levels of complexity there. And the worse the problem gets, the harder it is to actually solve it.
Well, the problem is really bad in Seattle. And the thing is, King County's, the official building, the Chinook building, where all of King County's offices are, is right downtown Seattle. It's right across the street from the King County Jail. And right down the street, like literally a block away, is this park where all the drug users hang out every day. So they're right in the middle of it, you know? And so there's people literally taking a crap on the sidewalk right outside Dow Constantine's office.
Where I live I live between the Tri-Cities and Yakima, and there was actually recently a really big fire just on the outskirts of the Tri-Cities that was started from a homeless camp.
Yeah.
And multiple homes burned down, like hundreds and hundreds of acres of land were burned. It was a lot of people got hurt and injured.
Yeah, I was just down in LA last week.
And Tri-Cities is doing a lot better with the problem than Seattle. I can't imagine being in an urban space dealing with it. Actually, this is kind of a weird mix of rural space meeting homeless camps. Yeah. I don't think there's usually a lot of those, but it's.
Well, I was in LA last week.
Homelessness exacerbates all the other problems you can have.
Yeah.
It is inflammatory to everything, to crime, to drug use, to apparently wildfires.
Mm-hmm.
It makes people unhappy to be in their town.
Yeah. Well, especially when you see how much, if you've lived there a long time, and you see how the whole thing is literally going to pot.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's not because people are smoking pot, but it's because all I can say is it's gone completely downhill. So I was in LA, okay?
So to swing it back a little bit, one of the interesting things that Forward National has been trying to piece together the exact messaging on, and I know they've released it in some places, but not everywhere, but is this idea of principal priority policy. And not to say that every state is following this perfectly, but it gives an idea of kind of how Forward wants to structure the conversation of how they make decisions. Mm-hmm. So National sets principles. These are generally generic ideas like thriving communities, free people, democracy reform, et cetera. They don't specify exactly what that means except for supporting RCV. But the general principles that the states and candidates are expected to follow.
Okay.
And usually, while they are very generic, it's usually pretty easy to see when one of them's been broken.
Okay.
But anyways, so they set these general, large-scale, over high 10,000 feet principles. Then they want states to pick their priorities. These are... A priority is a problem, basically, that the party wants to solve. It does not. The
Forward Party.
Right. The Forward Party wants to solve. It does not specify how the problem is solved because they want those the solutions to reflect how the community wants to solve those problems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually a very good idea. My time working with nonprofits has told me that communities know themselves best usually.
Mm-hmm.
And I have seen really bad ideas work out great because everybody in the community loved it.
Oh.
It's
Tell
a
kind of
very
more.
weird phenomenon to watch. Like, okay, yeah, no, I have a pile of evidence that says this isn't going to work, and they were like, no, this is a good idea, and they were right. Like I was,
Okay.
but anyways, but you set these priorities, like, and I can tell you in Washington State, one of those priorities is going to be homelessness
Better be.
because it's not actually just a problem in Seattle. Like the entire West Coast, Spokane, the Tri-Cities,
Mm-hmm.
Yakima, even Walla Walla, every major area has been having significant problems with this. And I guarantee the cool down of COVID has come with a lot of it. And it
Yeah.
has only gotten worse with inflation. And
Yeah.
so when Washington says homelessness is one of our priorities, that means that any candidate running as forward, hopefully lots of them in 2024, is going to be able to articulate their solutions to homelessness and how they would like to go about doing that. And as a party in primaries or in a general election, we would be selecting between hopefully multiple forwardists who have different ideas on how to solve homelessness.
Yeah.
Or forwardists that are working on homelessness in different ways, but on different sides of the state. I can guarantee you the same plans that are going to pass in Seattle aren't going to pass in Walla Walla.
Yeah.
And
That's
vice
fine.
versa. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're making progress on the problem, that is what we need to be doing. I can tell you Republicans love homelessness in Seattle because they get to throw it at Democrats every left turn.
Right.
It's like, yeah, you're doing real great over there. Look, how many people did I have to step over to get into this building?
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing is, I mean,
but they're not solving the problem. Republicans keep shipping people to other states.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a solution.
Well, okay, that's shipping people to the states. So let's talk about the southern border for a second. So that, as far as I can tell, is a complete disaster. Like an utter disaster.
It's gotten better.
Has it?
The most recent statistics report showed that illegal border crossings plummeted the last quarter.
Maybe that just means that they had less agents which would actually report it.
I mean, that's entirely possible. Unfortunately, I don't work for the border. I'm out of my depths there.
And
I have opinions on immigration. I know Forward hasn't taken any stances on immigration.
I heard that the number of people that died of fentanyl overdose in the U.S. is twice as many people as died from the Vietnam War. Really? It's something like 100,000 people or something like that. It's a huge number.
Wow. Where'd you hear that? I'm actually curious. I hadn't heard that one.
Yeah. The thing is, and the fentanyl, and the whole fentanyl thing
dangerous.
Is, well, that's the problem at the border right now, is that the drug cartels are just going back and forth.
They are. So it doesn't help that a lot of the drug trade isn't going by illegal underground crossing. Like a lot of it, some of it is absolutely, I'm sure, but they come over by semi-truck, by boat,
Yeah.
I actually have a dad who worked state patrol for 25 years, and he was in the drug enforcement section of it for a while, and a drug recognition expert and all this. Anyways, he had a lot of certifications and got to see a lot of the drug problems in Yakima, which when he was in Yakima as a state patrol officer shortly after Yakima was declared the cocaine capital of the country.
Well,
yeah, so Yakima was actually the center distribution point for cocaine in the entire country.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the drug trade cannabis came down from the north in Canada. Cocaine came up from the south border from Mexico. They met in Yakima. They traded, and then there was distribution to the rest of the country.
Why Yakima?
I'm serious. It was a whole thing. Like in the 90s,
is it because there's a lot of migrant workers in Yakima, and that's why?
Yes.
Okay.
There are a lot of migrant workers in Yakima.
Okay, because of the peach trade.
It was also a major
center
for meth creation and distribution until the laws on cold medicine happened.
Okay.
But anyways, that's all very, very random information.
Yeah, there's so much stuff.
The stories I have heard of the way people hide drugs is astounding. One of the most popular that that I heard from law enforcement were when you take semi trucks often have two fuel tanks
Okay.
that like switch over when one's empty,
Right.
and they would literally fill one entire fuel tank with liquid meth.
God. Okay.
But those gas tanks are huge.
Right.
Like you can literally store hundreds and hundreds of gallons of liquid meth, which comes out to like hundreds of pounds of meth when it's finished. And that's a lot of meth. That is a lot. That is millions and millions of dollars of meth.
Okay.
All in a gas tank in a semi truck. Or they bond them to other things, or they're very, very creative.
Right.
Anymore.
Yeah.
And they only got more creative.
Okay, back to the Ford Party.
Sorry.
So right now it's striking me as being kind of intellectual, kind of blanket goody-goody. So how do we get from, I mean, every party has a set of principles that make sense, but the problem, of course, is in the implementation.
You're right on the money. That's the game and that's what we've all been trying to figure out over the last year. Honestly, every state, every team out there, we're all taking on it a little bit differently.
Okay.
I can say that Washington, we plan to try and put into place some sort of platform of some kind.
Okay.
National has said that within reason, states are allowed to set platforms.
Okay.
And Washington is so fiercely independent sometimes that we might have done it even if they told us no.
Yeah.
But
you got to have something that people can sink their teeth into. It can't just be all abstractions and vagaries.
Exactly.
Otherwise, there's nothing that people really care about.
See, and the big one for me was attracting candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you find somebody who really wants to run for office, you say, well, would you be interested in running as Forward? They say, well, I don't know. Do I agree with Forward? Like, well, let's find out.
Oh, also, it's like how much can Forward,
like,
again, it all comes down to funding. So how much money can Forward put towards that person's campaign?
You'd actually be very surprised. Well, and this comes down to some of like the internal goals. Like the goal isn't just to win Senate campaigns or even state legislature. We'd love to win a state legislative position. We would, but those are expensive too.
Mm-hmm.
They can cost anywhere from $40,000 to $250,000 to win.
Okay, I think that's what. Okay, maybe that's where I got that number from.
That might be you might be looking at the number to actually win a state legislative.
Okay, maybe that's what it was.
Yep, and I can tell you that was information I got directly from ex-state legislators.
Okay.
Who both won and lost elections.
Though I swear, the thing was, I swear that it was to get yourself on the ballot on a primary ballot took a lot of money.
That's the filing fee. And fun fact, in Washington, you can either pay the filing fee or you can get a specific document and enough signatures of people to get it on the primary instead.
Okay.
And it's $1 to signature exchange rate. So if you need, and that's only for the high level positions. If you go, like let's say you wanted to run for county commissioner,
mm-hmm.
or if you wanted to run for city council. Washington still administers the elections for that. And
Seattle City Council? There's going to be a few openings because everybody's running from that too now.
Well, you only have to collect enough signatures or enough dollars to that original percentage. And that's based on the number of people that could vote for that position.
Yeah. And
so the smaller the locality, the smaller the filing fee, and the smaller the number of signatures you might need to get to not pay a filing fee. And the reality is Forward isn't going to get to throw money at elections this year and probably not next. If we're lucky, maybe the 2025, 2026, we have the kind of money it takes to actually bankroll lots of elections. The reality is we're going to be very selective and we're going to have a good focus on local elections.
Okay.
Like Republicans had this, going to be perfectly honest, amazing push over this last, since 2018, I want to say, for school boards.
Mm-hmm.
And while I wasn't very happy with a lot of the way those elections went, they won a lot of positions, and most of these positions didn't require them to garner more than a couple thousand votes. Not a lot of people actually vote for their local school board elections.
Right.
And the ones that do, a little bit of name recognition, or you just calling all of your closest friends and asking them to call their friends, can get you enough votes to win a school board position. But what happens is those people go from winning school board positions to running for city council, to running for county executives, to running for state legislator. It creates a seed pool. And not only that, but we dismiss the impact those people have on our lives in the first place.
Yeah.
School councils keep our schools open and funded and good places to go.
Right.
Those city council members, they are constantly working to keep their cities running. Like, those positions matter to us, but we don't pay attention to them, and a lot of those go uncontested. A lot of those go uncontested. That shouldn't be happening. At the very least, Forward can be the force for good and make those people actually justify having their positions. If anything, if in worst case scenario, the literal worst case scenario, Forward gets enough people on the ballot to force whoever is still winning, either Republican or Democrat, to at least defend themselves and their opinions in public.
Right. That would be nice.
I think that alone would be a huge win. Because as you just said, the King County Executor doesn't have to defend themselves squat.
I know.
They're not competed against.
Yep.
That's wrong. That's not democracy. That's just, what is that? Work? I don't know.
It's something bad.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Ideas need to be challenged.
They do. They need to be debated in open square.
And in a positive way, where we're trying to debate about solving the problems, not just sitting here attacking each other.
Right.
In good faith. That's actually one of the primary tenets of Forward at both state and national levels, is that when you come to the table to debate your ideas, we are really trying to come up with the best idea. That's what we want here. We want to make people's lives better.
Okay, so how do we do this? I mean, how do we diffuse the adversarial nature of politics? How do we get people to embrace love, embrace humanity, and just say, hey, we're all in the same boat, we're on the same planet, let's just get together and actually get some stuff done that really needs to get done?
Well,
how do we get to that point?
The first way, as we mentioned, was RCV. Because RCV just had a natural impact to decrease the amount of hostility in elections.
Okay, RCV needs nothing to me. So ranked
choice voting. That's ranked choice voting.
Ranked choice voting, okay.
Yep, as we talked about earlier, ranked choice voting. Okay. That significantly dampens the amount of hostility in elections.
Okay, so
because you don't want to attack the person who is someone else's first choice, because then you're going to get knocked down further on second choice. So there's a very reward basis for not being hostile to anybody, unless being hostile to somebody actually garners you more votes, which is not.
Okay, so that's a great thing then. So maybe somehow we just really promote that ranked choice voting.
Oh, absolutely.
Makes our lives better. And here's why.
And it works. We have studied. It really helps get rid of the hostility. So what does it take to implement that? Do you need have to sound terrible, we have to stand up and call out the fact that so many legislators are just on the attack. That's all they do. They attack. They attack transgender policies. They attack culture war, all the culture wars,
and they attack anti-transgender policies too. Either way, you're attacking
anti-trans, and anti-trans, and and it's become a war over such small issues, while there are literally thousands of people in the street of Seattle, or a big one that I know that we're going to have as part of our platform in Washington almost certainly is something to do with police, because police is a super hot topic in Washington. And you can draw a line down the mountain range and listen to most people's opinion on it.
Okay.
But
to tell you the truth, I'm pro police, to tell you the truth.
I mean, I was raised by police officers.
Yeah.
So I have a pretty natural tendency there. But I also have a huge hatred for bad police officers.
There's bad cops, right? You know, there's good cops and bad cops. But if you took away the cops,
Oh yeah,
everything would disintegrate so fast.
yeah.
I mean, we see
In
it.
general,
We can see it in
truly
downtown Seattle. So there's the cops have given up on even fighting homelessness down there. So the place is now freaking Mad Max
Yep.
because nobody cares.
Yep.
know?
It doesn't help that police are like the last person anybody ever wants to actually have
Yeah.
to interact with, because you never are interacting with them in a good position.
Yeah. Well, I've interacted with police several times up here in Linwood, and I've been nothing but impressed.
Well, that's good.
And also, I'll say
that's the reality. Most people actually, a minority of people say they have positive reactions with police officers. But the ones that do need to talk about it more.
I have an advantage because I'm a white guy, okay? So my black friends, of course, they're terrified of police.
Yeah.
For good reason, because as a black person, there's so many stories. You get stopped for a speeding ticket. The next thing you know, you get shot.
Yeah, no, that's a terrifying recent issue. I have no idea how that got all out of hand. But I know
it's been going on for decades.
On the flip side, one of the big issues we've had with and that is actually very recent, Washington laws changing the standard for when police are allowed to pursue people, car chases, basically. And it got to such a high standard that recently in Richland, there was an active shooting where a guy shot 2 people and then drove away through multiple police cars, and they were not allowed to pursue.
Yeah, that's crap.
Because they had no reason to currently believe that he was going to go shoot more people.
Oh, come on.
And it was like, well, I mean, they knew who he was because they'd gotten his license plate, they'd gotten pictures, they knew who he was. Some of the police had even seen him before. So they knew who he was. And I actually had to have a talk with I had to call my source for these kinds of laws. My dad, State Patrol for a long time, and he had to run me down the laws that would be involved with this. And he said, yeah, if we know who they are, we know where their home is, we don't think they have any reason to keep shooting people, so they're not a immediate threat, then we can't chase them. And I'm just like, the guy just shot 2 people.
Shit.
You don't just get to draw any.
Yeah, that's like what state was it? Or city? I think it was San Francisco that declared that they were no longer going to prosecute shoplifters because it was a minor offense. So of course, what happened? People just started shoplifting like crazy because they knew that nobody was going to stop them. Yeah. Yeah,
it's terrible, and
and
it's a failure on every side.
Not all criminals are stupid. Some of them are smart, and once they figure out there's some stupid law, they'll just exploit it.
I actually believe that criminals are not that smart, because smart criminals are very, very dangerous. But criminals are very opportunistic. Mm-hmm. And the reality is, if they're not going to get prosecuted for it, then there's no penalty.
Then why would they stop doing it? Yeah. It's like, well, okay, let's go to a completely different thing. Wells Fargo Bank.
See, that's where you start getting smart criminals in the banks. That's where the smart criminals are. Then it gets scary.
So Wells Fargo's bank, as you know, has paid literally billions of dollars in fines for violations they've done against everyone across the board. And you know what they realized? It's more profitable for them to continue paying the fines and ripping people off than it is to stop ripping people off. So they just keep doing it.
Yep. Yeah. As a rule of thumb, so it's actually kind of funny. There was a saying in my old master's program: if you want to enforce a law, you don't make it apply to poor people. And this was and a good example that I had was, or the example presented to me at the time was about illegal immigration.
Okay.
If you want a law to be enforced, you apply it to rich people. Because a poor person, when they break the law, has very little to lose. Okay. So when they're doing their cost-benefit analysis, for example, robbing a liquor store. Okay. They win, they get some money. They need money. For whatever they need the money for, they need money. Right. They lose, They get arrested. Well, what did they lose? Well, they didn't have any money, so they didn't have any food. They didn't have a safe place to live. So they went from, well, they're out, but life sucks, to they're in, life sucks.
Yeah, or then they're like, well, maybe jail isn't so bad after all.
Right.
At least they're getting food.
Or then you get lifers, right?
Yeah.
And so poor people, when they're making decisions, don't have as much to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And so the cost-benefit analysis starts leaning in the favor of crime.
Mm-hmm.
Rich people have a lot to lose.
Right.
And they very much care when they lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the example given with the illegal immigration, this was actually now thrown out in, or now being tested in Florida. If you prosecute people who hire illegal immigrants, which is illegal, it's illegal to hire illegal immigrants.
Okay.
But if you actually prosecute them or you put high fines on it, where whatever they might save by paying under the table or not actually checking, or paying just really low wages, whatever they might save is now lost by having to pay these crazy high fines.
Mm-hmm.
Now they really start enforcing that law. They'll enforce it for you because they really don't want to lose all their money.
Right.
And so, of course, rich people are also much better at getting around laws, which is a different problem.
Right.
But that was just something that was told to me a long time ago, and that's just a personal thing. But it's it actually applies.
See, that's what
wildly.
I've decided. Everything, the thing that makes things work, it's all economics.
Oh yeah.
It's all the bottom line, how it's funded, who's making a profit off it, and whatever. The people that are looking at those things are the ones making the decisions. That's why I keep asking, how is Forward Party funded and how are you planning to fund? Because that, to me, that's just reality.
Yep. Right now, it's not like we have mega million donors. Forward is still at the national level federal PAC. Because in order to qualify to be a national party, like a true blue U.S. identified national party, you have to have state parties in enough states. There's not even a flat number, actually, just the FEC. You apply to the FEC for national party status, then they look at your state parties and say, yeah, you got enough, or no, you don't got enough. Yeah, not even like a line of an actual line. They just kind of make it up. So, but you have to meet that threshold, whatever that imaginary threshold is, to be a national party.
Okay.
And then state parties all have different ways of getting there. Texas has to get tens of thousands of signatures. Washington doesn't even recognize state parties. You just have to file your paperwork correctly for reporting donations.
So we're a state party now.
We are, yes. I filed that paperwork last month.
All right. Okay, so I need some more Forward Party T-shirts then.
Oh, good. If you give us enough time, we'll get some Washington ones printed.
Oh, that'd be cool.
We're trying. Hopefully by the time our convention comes around.
Yeah, I was going to say, isn't there some kind of convention happening in Seattle soon?
There is. I think we just moved its date to October 7th, but don't guarantee that because, actually maybe I should edit that out because I'm not even 100% and I shouldn't give a date that I'm not 100% sure on. But we're finalizing
sometime
the date
in
and the
October.
location.
Let's say that. And
then we'll be marketing it heavy across every Forward supporter in Washington. I'll happily be I'll bring our convention chair and tell him to come talk to you and give a long spiel about it.
Sure, we'll have be on this show right here.
It'll be a one-day event. We're looking to have some pretty good speakers. Chris Novoselic. I don't know if you know who that is, but he was the bassist for Nirvana. Also kind of a famous person. He's on. I
could play cello with him.
Did you really?
No, I could.
Oh, you could
on stage. We could either that or play
bring his accordion.
Oh,
maybe I'll convince him to bring his Third Secret, the band Third Secret, to the convention as the.
Can he play stand-up bass too?
I have no idea how many instruments he plays.
That would be cool.
I know he can play a lot of instruments.
Okay. We'll do like a blues thing.
And that's what he does. But I know he plays accordion in his current band. So.
Oh, interesting.
That's actually how he started, apparently, was accordion.
Okay.
Anyways, but he's also the ex-chair of Fair Vote, which is a national nonprofit that's been working on ranked choice voting for a very long time.
Oh, okay.
And he was the chair of that nationally for 11 years. We're hoping to have Jason Glenn. He was the legislator I mentioned out of Alaska, won 2 terms as an independent. So
Okay.
as zero party, and also was the sponsor of the ranked choice voting in Alaska, which is the only state to have statewide ranked choice voting.
Okay, so let me ask you this. What does it take to get a state or a city to implement ranked choice voting? Is there like some supermajority has to approve it, or how do you do it?
Depends on the state.
So in Washington, for example.
In Washington, the best way is a ballot initiative.
Okay,
So
and then just people have to approve it? Just needs a...
You have to get signatures.
Okay.
You have to get signatures. That's a big one. And that's actually the
to
city
get
of
on the
Seattle,
ballot, and then, okay.
The city of Seattle actually recently passed ranked choice voting. So now elections done for the city of Seattle will be ranked choice voting by 2026. Yep.
Okay, so now let's try it in King County.
Yep. It failed, though, in Pierce County, barely.
What about King?
Failed. It's not in King County yet. Only for the city of Seattle that passed it.
Okay, so what I'm saying is if it passed in Seattle, is the heart of King County.
And the reality is if the major cities can do it, what'll happen is then the software gets written, the contracts get written, and then anybody else that wants to do it, you can just call the auditors in those areas and just copy paste that over, minor modifications.
Kaboom.
Yep. As a matter of fact, Seattle passed it after Portland, and Portland has to get it done by 2024. And the thought process currently is that Portland and Seattle are pretty similar beasts in their elections.
Yeah. Okay. So that I'm going to say, ask
the company
again.
that gets it done for Portland is also doing it for Seattle.
Okay.
So odds are Seattle might actually beat its 2026 deadline for that.
Okay. So here's the question. So we did it in Seattle. So why? So what are we trying to get it passed in King County?
I mean, yes.
Okay.
If by we you mean the Forward Party, yes, we want it everywhere. The challenge is ballot initiatives are hard, they are expensive, and then you still have to vote on it, and sometimes it gets shut down. I bet you King County could actually get it passed.
Yeah. And we have tons of ballot initiatives in King County.
Yep, I can tell you.
Whatever his name is, Iman's always got some new one.
Fair Vote Washington is actually a very successful organization, and they're the ones that push it right now the hardest in the state of Washington. And that would be the people I would refer people to if they really want to hammer down on ranked choice.
The key is you have to educate people in as least amount of words possible, in simplest terms, what ranked choice voting is and why it's good. No,
I don't disagree entirely. The challenge is getting in front of enough people.
Remember those cartoons they had of, I'm just a bill, da-da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, my God. Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock. If we had a Schoolhouse Rock cartoon that explained what ranked choice voting was, that would be ideal.
That is a great idea. I'm going to send some emails about that because I would want to watch that.
Yeah. There might be somebody talented enough that could pull it off, too. It's just stuff like that where you make it as simple as possible and have a nice little jingle so it sticks in your brain, and some cool little cartoons so it hits your subconscious, and then you got it.
The ranked choice voting itself actually isn't all that complicated once you actually look down at pictures.
Yeah.
The interesting part is just how complex, how many ways it influences our elections.
Right. That's fine.
But the reason it hasn't passed everywhere is because legislators fight it. Because all those legislators are
right.
They're Republicans and Democrats.
What, they want to keep the status quo?
Yes, very much so.
So
why do they want more competition from third parties?
Well,
this anger-inducing election system got them elected. Why do they want to switch to a nicer everybody get along and actually solve problems? Problems get them elected. Why do they want to fix them?
Exactly. So again, that means there's energies there in place that are trying to keep everything the same. So that means our energy to change things for the better has to become as strong or more strong than that.
Yep.
And the key is you have to turn it into, it has to become simple, powerful messages that you just keep hammering away at. Like, remember Bernie Sanders, he would stick to his thing.
Oh,
He was like a broken record because he knew that the more he did it, the more it would finally sink in, right?
Yep.
And the only thing that shot him down was the DNC.
Yeah.
But he almost did it.
Yeah, he was close. Who knows? Maybe he'll run again.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind a bit of a younger politician these days.
But yeah.
But yeah, it's Forward has an uphill battle. That's the reality of any third party.
Well, it always is, because like you said, if you start getting some momentum, then you get in the crosshairs, and then they'll put some effort into trying to shut you down.
Exactly. The thing that I think is going to help us is that people are frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
And for good reason.
Yeah.
60% of people don't feel that they're represented. Mm-hmm. Well over half of America, or almost, I would say well more than 80% of Americans feel like things aren't going well.
Right.
Most people say that politicians are too old and they've been there too long, that something has to change.
Yeah.
But people have a hard time deciding what to change. Well, let me tell you, Forward is here for a change. And we are hoping to be the thing that upsets the scales.
Right.
Loosen things up a bit.
Yeah, well, things are changing. One big change is that the mainstream media is losing their grip on everything.
Oh yeah, media's a whole thing.
Yeah, that's good that that they all got together and made an agreement to try and. Did you hear about that?
Which one?
Mainstream media a while ago, all the big companies like CBS and CNN and Fox and all those guys and the owners of them realized that they were losing viewership to the independent podcasters and stuff.
Yeah, I have heard about that.
So they got together and had a big conference and came up with this agreement and this strategy to maintain their power on the narrative. And whenever something, they would decide what are you allowed to talk about and what are you not? And if other podcasters and whatever start talking about other stuff, then we call that disinformation and conspiracy theories immediately, no matter what it is.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. They had a formal agreement. They all signed it.
I'm pretty sure everything is disinformation if I didn't say it.
Yeah. So, but of course now it's starting to backfire big time because people have had enough. Huh? And, CNN has lost huge amounts of their viewership. And then Fox killed themselves by firing Tucker Carlson. So
I am legitimately curious the conversations that circled around that. Yeah. Like that guy, I half sometimes wonder if maybe he's not as crazy as we all think.
He's anti-establishment.
Very much encouraged him.
He's anti-establishment. That's why the establishment doesn't like him. Yep. He's willing to say shit.
That's the problem with being anti-establishment. He's anti your establishment too.
Yeah. So, yeah. And so everything's going to this more home-baked podcaster type of stuff, alternative news networks, especially the younger kids.
Being part of that?
So, I mean, you ever watch Rising the Hill? Heard of those guys?
I have not.
They're really good. They got like 1.5 million subscribers, and they've got a white guy who represents he's probably in his 30s, glasses, and kind of hip, but he wears like a suit, but he talks about video games sometimes. He represents the Republic point of view. Then there's a black woman who represents the Democrat point of view. And they go after each other, but you can tell they're also friends because they have a certain banter and everything. It's a really good show. And neither of them goes and just spouts, hyperbole and stupid shit. Right. They actually use facts, and back them up, and they have reasonable conversations. It's cool. A great show. So that's my new news source.
Where are they out of?
It's just like it's a podcast. It's called The Hill Rising. Yeah.
Okay.
I forget their names. The girl's name is Brianna. And then the guy's name is, I forget. And they do like, what they do is they just publish it on YouTube. They do like 10 to 20 minute segments on YouTube all day long, several times a day on YouTube. You know, it's all current event stuff. And you'd be surprised how different a show like that is than if you go over to CNN or Fox or NBC, MSNBC or all those places. Yeah.
Yeah. The curation is very, very different.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Cable news is going to disappear soon anyways.
Yeah, it's really losing it. All right, so Forward Party. So we got a convention happening in, you said it was
late
sometime
September,
in October.
early October.
Okay, October. And then we've determined that Forward Party in the Washington State basically is such a thing. So I could run as a Forward Party candidate right now, Matt Weiss.
There's not a lot of them yet, but yes.
So if I wanted to run for county executive, I could be Matt Weiss, Forward Party county executive.
Yes.
For how many for $2,000 or how much would it cost?
Depends how many signatures you can get.
Well, okay, if I don't want to do
if you wanted to just pay the fee, which is what most people do, I'm not sure how big the county filing fee is. I could look it up. I'm sure it's publicly available.
So it's somewhere around $2,000.
I think so.
Well, I'm paying way more than that for my lawsuit against King County. So $2,000 is it's a drop in the bucket. So
yep. We're actually hoping to create a whole initiative of people willing to sign off on other people running, so that we can decrease people's costs for running. It's a whole internal thing that we're hoping. We're trying to create as many benefits as we can give to candidates. Actually, I don't know.
I mean, okay, let me tell you this though. I mean, for county executive, if you can't fundraise $2,000 to run, then you probably shouldn't be the county executive.
No. Yeah,
because you have to do a lot of fundraising once you're actually in there.
I'm sure that's a higher fundraising position. Yeah.
So
we have someone who we're hoping is going to be running in Seattle for city council.
Okay, a Forward Party city council person. Okay, that's cool.
If they win, they're hoping to run, or they're going to run. We're one of the things that we have to work on internally is like the whole endorsement process, because the reality is like we're not a major party. We don't have to follow the major party rules in Washington, which are really weird rules anyways. And like now we're planning for the 2024 election, and people are coming forward asking if they can run us forward. It's like,
well, yeah.
Okay, now we have to actually write down how we decide who gets endorsed and who doesn't. And right now, most people who come forward are probably going to get endorsed, because like only the most excited people are coming forward and saying, yes, we want to run as that. Yeah. Which is great. Like I'm stoked. Like as far as I'm concerned, if somebody really believes in Forward and wants to run as it, I want to put a very low barrier on.
Yeah, well, I mean, all you have to do is say, look, I don't want to run as a Democrat. I don't want to run as a Republican. I love Forward, not left, not right, Forward. So sign me up.
Yep.
That's good enough for me.
Then we just got to sit down and actually talk about.
I'm honestly tempted to go into politics, except that I have so many things in the fire and creative stuff that I really want to do instead.
Yeah, I was considering running in 2024, but I've got 4 kids, the oldest of which just turned 5.
Oh wow!
I'm a stay-at-home dad, and
if
I wanted to run, not only would I be running, but I would also have to pay for all of their childcare during that time period, which would be a mess.
The other thing is, you have to realize if you get into politics, you have to be ready to get in there and fight, because there's all kinds of people playing dirty pool.
Yep. Oh, you can't have.
You have to be able to deal with that, have a thick enough skin, and also be able to hit them back hard too when they start doing that crap.
Yep.
So
this is America, baby. We fight hard.
Yeah. Well, I'm doing it at my work right now. I mean, like I said.
Not only that, but as a forwardist taking centrist positions, you don't get to just get up there and be angry.
And you can't just spout truisms all day too. You have to come up with stuff that's real, and you have to be able to really sink in and make it happen.
Yep.
So.
And and you also have to acknowledge this is always a hard one for people running for a local office, especially. You have to acknowledge that just because you got elected doesn't mean you're going to be able to just change everything.
Right.
Like, the reality is, like, if you're running for city council, you're probably one of 5. And if you get in there and you're not willing to work with the other 4 because you only want to do it your way, you just wasted your time.
Well, you have to be a good leader. So a good leader is, on one hand, you got to be able to speak powerfully. On the other hand, you have to be able to listen.
I don't know about the speak powerfully one. I've heard Jay Inslee speak, and I don't get.
Well, maybe he's not a good leader then.
He is a terrible speaker. He is a terrible speaker.
Well,
so I think you just have to be able to articulate your ideas well and be able to convince people that your ideas are good.
Yeah, you have to be able to influence people. Let's say that.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Helps when you start with good ideas.
Yeah. And then you have to be able to express them in a way that people can relate to.
Yep. All of the politicians I've met who actually got anywhere all seem like really nice people.
Well, that's it. They've got some kind of magnetism, some kind of charisma that people relate to.
You don't get to be a big politician by being mean to people. I mean, you can make a lot of headlines that way.
There are times when you got to just stand up and say, "This is crap. We can't do this. We have to stop this."
Yeah, but you never say that about people. You can say that about like an individual, or you can say that about an idea, but you can never insult your constituents.
Yeah, well, of course, Trump.
Actually,
Trump insults people all the time, and look how successful he is.
I was going to say, he's a very interesting exception that has caused a lot of problems.
Yeah,
but we will not get into that today because we could fill a whole thing about problems with today's politics, which is why Forward now exists.
Yeah.
Because Republicans and ex-Republicans and ex-Democrats got together and said, this is crap, and made Forward.
Yep. This is true. Yep. It's very true. So all right, so let's wrap it up.
Hopefully next time anybody listening to this hears from Forward, it's from the news, talking about how Forward is upsetting something or another somewhere.
Yeah. Well, so I'm going to, so there's several other Forward Party people that we wanted to have talk to me too, right?
Yeah. Okay, I have a few people that are willing. Specifically, Jonathan West. He's a radio host out of Seattle.
Oh, great. Okay.
So he's very used to this. Probably even more talkative than I am, which is saying something. And so he's a good source. He talks about it passionately. He really cares. He might not be quite as knowledgeable about all the national stuff going on.
Okay.
But he'll talk about his personal experience with it all.
Well, there we go. I want to hear some real personal stories, stuff I can relate to. Yep. Stuff that'll get me fired up.
Definitely be able to do that.
Yeah.
I have a young couple, awesome volunteers, Brandon and Leica. They're not members of the leadership team, but they are awesome volunteers, and they are very articulate and good at what they talk about, and I think they could do a good job.
Okay.
And who knows? Maybe someday we'll actually convince Chris to start doing some podcasts.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's a little too famous for podcasts, I think
some podcasts are, well, it depends which podcast.
That's true.
There's podcasters that get more views than cable networks.
That's true. Forward is literally flying him out around the country for events. So, and I don't blame him. I mean, he's a pretty cool dude.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and for now, let's just put in the link. Is it forwardparty.com? Is that it?
Actually, if I get to pick the link, it would be wa.forwardparty.com.
Okay. We'll put it down there. Just click on it.
It's a brand new website. It still looks rough, but hopefully in the next month we'll have it all sorted out.
Let's do it.
But that's the Washington Forward website.
Okay, and I'll also put the national website too. I can put more than one
that one's
link.
easy. If you Google Forward Party, that'll come up easy.
Google Forward Party, folks.
Yep.
Okay, not left, not right, forward. All right, then let's wrap it up. We're going to do the Vulcan salute. You know what this is, right?
Oh, I know what it is. I don't use it very often.
Live long and prosper. My channel is all about Star Trek, by the way. I don't know if you know.
Right. I see all the... Yep.
Also the Orville right there. And various other things. Also, this is the Falcon 9 SpaceX ship.
Oh.
That's the booster. Yes. I just got it.
Very cool.
And then this is the upper stage right here. and so on. I'm kind of a sci-fi channel. Then here's classic Star Trek phaser, and it works. Careful.
See, I was raised a fantasy geek, so I've only got a 150 minis or something back here in the closet for D&D games.
Oh, you play D&D? Okay, I did a bit of that in high school.
Yeah. I used to actually do it for money for a little while.
I was a dungeon master?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I ran some crazy good stories too.
I think there's online places where you can sell your services even now.
Yep. I did a lot of online games.
Cool.
Used to run a Discord for games I ran that I think had 100 people.
Oh, nice. See, right there. There's something now that people can relate to.
For people from Australia to UK to
you did Dungeons and Dragons Down Under, mate.
He was awesome too. He was a great player. A lot of fun.
Oh,
it was really funny because I was playing at like 8 p.m. and he was playing at like 1 p.m. So it was always weird.
That's great.
It was his morning and my night.
And they got Kangas and Crocs in your game.
Sometimes, actually, yes.
Oh, that's really
had a person wrestle an alligator and then make friends with them.
Well, I'm excited about that.
It's always entertaining.
Cool. All right.
I still haven't integrated the drop bears into a game yet. I need to do that.
Okay, we just invented something. So we're going to do a online Dungeons and Dragons game for the forward party. That would be cool.
I'm trying to figure out now I'm going to be trying to figure out how to integrate forward into a D&D game.
You'll figure it out.
I might actually. I might have to do that.
That would be cool.
That sounds fun.
Any kind of gimmick like that is suddenly now it's something fun, and then you get the younger crowd into it, and
the younger crowd does like D&D these days. It's very popular now. I love it. My geekiness is now mainstream.
Yep. Throw some Legos in there, and what else? Minecraft too. What the heck?
Oh my God. Now we're getting real young.
And then, of course, My Little Pony. It's probably making a comeback.
My oldest is 5, and she likes that show. I don't get it, but I'm glad she likes it, and that's all I care about.
Well, I had teenagers who loved that show. They adored it. It was a rage amongst teenagers when my kids were teenagers.
Yeah, I remember when that happened. I did not get it.
Yeah.
I did not understand it. I don't know. I guess fanships are weird.
Yeah, well, it hit something in the psychology.
Yep.
Then everybody started doing it. Well, it's just like when Rickrolling became a huge thing.
Okay, I admit I love Rickrolling.
So do I. Well, I remember my kids were telling me about, there's this goofy guy in a trench coat that sings this dorky song. And a
dorky song. It's a great song.
Then they showed it to me, and I'm like, oh, wait, I know this guy. I love this guy. Yeah, this is a great song.
It's great.
I remember listening to this.
Dorky my butt. Didn't live through the 80s or 90s, did you?
Yeah.
This was great.
Plus, he still concertizes now. And,
does he?
Yeah, he's really good.
I remember once he did a Ask Me Anything or something on Reddit, and he basically expressed that he loves that people are still listening to his song.
Oh,
he doesn't even care whether or not it makes him money. He just thinks it's awesome that people still watch it so often.
Right, of course. Free marketing.
I can get behind that. Yeah, he's just happy that people love his song.
Yeah, Rick Astley is still the guy. We should get him to be at the convention.
Oh, man.
That would rock.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be able to pay that one.
And then what should happen? You have Rick Astley speaking at the convention.
I'm over here with a Nirvana band member, and you're going to say not good enough? Now you got to get like a 90s
We can have them both, but get this. You have Rick Astley there, right? And then have somebody Rickroll him.
Oh, my God. It would actually be doable. I can actually think of how I do that, because if we use an online voting system, which we're considering, we could put a link up there to scan, or like a QR code. Okay, scan this to go to the voting site. And then while he's on stage, have literally the entire audience be Rickrolled.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, that was just a test. Now we're actually going to vote.
Yeah, see, that would be great. There's all these things we can do. All
I
right,
don't know.
let's
Someone
sign
might
off.
be mad at me about that.
I have to go to sleep soon. Now, if I start getting these crazy ideas, then I'll have weird dreams.
All right.
All right,
Well, thank you for
Darin.
having me.
Yep. Till next time. You can always come back
Adios.
again. Now we got some ideas hatching. Next time we can just talk about all the crazy ideas that we're going to try to make happen.
I'm hoping next time I have so many more specifics for you. I want to talk about the cool candidates we have running. I want to talk
There we
about
go.
the convention lineup and when
we
it
go.
is, where it is, what we're going to do there. I hope next time I talk to you, I want to get into the nitty gritty and be
Okay, and we
able
need
to
some
answer-
American flags that we can wave around and
Yeah,
so
I got
on.
nothing over here. My basement doesn't get a lot of wind.
Yeah, that's okay. I got a bunch from 4th of July. I should have brought them in here, darn it.
Good idea.
But next
Oh,
time.
wait, hold on. Let me see here. Here we go. Ooh, even better. I have the volunteer or donate. Let's see here. How much
forward,
can we get
yeah.
that to fill it?
Help
There you go,
create
even
a
with the QR code,
better
volunteer
future
and
for
donate.
Washington. Donate, volunteer, not left, not right, forward.
Yep.
Now.
In fact, now we're going to use different websites than those you even refer to, but that's good enough for now.
All right. Now we're talking. All right, Darin.
All
Until next
right.
time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing you volunteering soon, too.
Yep.
Pranakasha production. Fantastic creations emerging spontaneously from the space of life.
For the benefit of all beings everywhere.
We gotta